Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Intopia webinar. We'll just give everyone a sec. There's still people streaming in from the waiting room, and then we will get started. All right, Julie, I think we're good to go.
I think so. All right, hang on a second. Close that without closing the entire Zoom. Hey everyone, how you doing? Thanks for coming along today. This is our testing for WCAG 2.2 webinar, and it's me, Julie Grundy, Senior Digital Accessibility Consultant here at Intopia, and Sarah Pellis with you as Director and, well, walking WCAG. Extensive WCAG knowledge about to be dropped on you all. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off with a land acknowledgement. So as I work out which slide, there we go, there's my keyboard. I would like to acknowledge that I'm hosting this webinar from the lands of the Whadjuk people, which is the Perth region. Also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we are all meeting today. And I want to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are joining us today.
Thanks, Julie. I would also like to acknowledge that I am joining this webinar from the lands of the Gadigal peoples, which is in Sydney, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging.
So, what are we covering today? We are going to be talking about I should do some housekeeping first before I go. So audience questions, there is a chat, but there is also a Q&A area. And so Chris Pycroft will be monitoring that for us and bringing questions to our attention. We hope to have time for Q&A at the end though. So please do put your questions in there and Chris will bring them to our attention. We also would love to say thank you to AI Media who are providing captioning for today's session. So thank you very much, AI Media. The last little bit of housekeeping to mention is that a recording of this webinar will be published on the Intopia YouTube channel as soon as we get it up and add the captioning in. So, what are we covering today in this webinar? We are going to be talking about the current state of WCAG 2.2. It is not finalised yet, but it's so close to being finalised.
That's what we keep saying though, Julie. How long have we been saying this?
How long have we been saying this? For a very long time. Any minute now, this is going to be real soon now. And we have obviously, and some of you may have had the same thing, where clients are starting to ask you, like, how do we prepare for WCAG 2.2? How should we be testing for this? So that's what we're going to cover today, is how we've been handling that. We're going to cover level 8 very quickly and level AA in more detail because that's where the complexities are. So level A, let's see if we can run through these quickly. We have the first criteria we want to talk about is 3.2.6. This is a new criteria called consistent help. Our basic summary of this is that basically all of your help channels can be found in a consistent location across the product. We're not going to, Sarah and I decided we're not going to read out WCAG criteria to you all today. You all know where to find it. If not, share a link in the chat. Those of you who know can share that with people who don't, if it's your first day thinking about WCAG. When we are testing for consistent help, you can easily test this in the design phase. We want to make sure that it's at least visually in the same place every time. And we want to test in the development phase because you can make things visually appear in the same place, even though actually in the code they are in a different place, which would present a bit of a problem for our screen reader and keyboard users. So usually we would be checking this kind of thing at the same time whenever you in your existing process are checking things like consistent navigation and consistent identification. Perfect time to be testing consistent help as well. Step 1 of your test, find all of the instances of your help mechanism that appear across multiple pages in your site. If there aren't any, or the help mechanism only appears in one spot, that's a pass. Really though, you should have some help mechanisms, right? Like, and you
Contact us link. It's a pretty
contact us
no-brainer.
link. Like, yeah, I think it's been a long time, Sarah, since I've encountered a site that didn't have any kind of help at all.
Yeah.
Now,
and these days, having live chat would be another big one, I would say, that would be on so many different sites.
Yeah, and being able to sort of say, oh, there was a live chat on an earlier page and go straight to the place where it is on this page is really saves people a lot of time. You might be asking yourself, what is a help mechanism? We've sort of covered this: human contact details, any kind of like a telephone number, an email, any self-help kind of like an FAQ or a knowledge base, or anything like a chatbot, so fully automated. So all of these are covered. I think this is very contextual as well. Would you agree, Sarah? Like, it's if it feels like it's a help mechanism, it probably is. Is my definition of that. Once you've identified those, then your next check is to see, do they occur in the same relative order on all of your pages? So this is visual location and your location in code. Now, location in code is usually, it's getting easier because as CSS, Flexbox, and Grid make layout easier, we're getting much less of this, like, oh, somebody's, the code is over here, but we've floated it over there to be visual over there. But if you are testing a bit of an old school website, you can use an old school web tool, which is the Web Developer Tools plugin. It's available for Firefox and Chrome, and it has an option called Linearize Page. I will just show you what that looks like. So I've got a little browser open here. It's just a Wikipedia page. I'm using the Web Developer Toolbar. It's got Linearize Page. And the part on this page where it becomes most clear is actually at the bottom. So all of these things have stopped being put into floated order. And we've got them there. So this might be where you would have, like, okay, we've got like disclaimers, we've got contact Wikipedia here. And that's in our standard order, and you would linearize that so that it didn't matter what order it's in. Expected result for this is, yes, they are in the same relative order. If they are not, then that is a failure of this criteria, and you should tell them to put them into a consistent order. It's easy, straightforward. Hopefully you won't be finding too many problems with this, but just in case, you can tell clients. Moving on to our next single A criteria is 3.3.7 redundant entry. People shouldn't have to re-enter information that they've already provided while doing a task. Again, you want to test in the design phase. You can easily avoid this problem by designing it out, but you should always do a double check during your development phase. Well, you're doing other forms or any kind of multi-step process. That's when you want to be doing this. You do need to understand, like, a process, like WCAG has a definition of process is a series of user actions where each action is required in order to complete an activity, and it has multiple steps. So if you've got forms, but then people have to take feedback and download something and then give it back, that's a process.
And I think the online checkout is a really great example of the process, because the ultimate outcome might be, I want to buy something, but in order to buy something, I need to be able to find the product. I need to be able to add the product to cart. I then need to be able to go to my cart and complete that checkout process. And one little note here is that, often people are using third-party products to process the credit card, or that is actually considered as part of the process. So even though it might be a third-party element that you're using within your site, from this perspective, it is all part of the process.
Yeah, exactly. So step one of our testing process would be to find all of the instances where same information needs to be entered multiple times within a process. If there aren't any, that is fantastic, and you can move on with your life. If not, then we have to
And
check.
I will actually note here that
Yeah.
one interesting thing about this is that entering it in twice doesn't necessarily mean as a user I have to enter it in twice. If the system has actually, let's say the system has your phone number saved and then it asks
Yes.
you to enter that same phone number again, that actually constitutes a re-entering of information. So it's sort of, you've almost got two cases here. It's either you need to personally re-enter the information twice, or the information has kind of been presented to you from the system, but you need to re-enter it
retype
again.
it again.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. If that is the case, if there is a situation we have to re-enter it, make it pre-populated, not an autocomplete, no typing involved. It's like something like, can you verify that this is still correct? Say if it's an address that they've already got on store for you, then it would be like, yes, is this the address? Cool, you don't have to type it again. Or you can choose it. So drop downs, copy and paste, ticky box, it's all good. So again, if there is information entered previously, but you've pre-populated it, you've made it easy for the user to get it, and the usual kinds of exceptions, right? Like it's essential, the information is required, it's no longer valid. Like these are the standard kind of WCAG exceptions, right? That's great. But if someone has to manually enter something again, then we are in trouble, and that is a fail. So, but that one is also like relatively easy to test. Like it's not, you're observing that during your existing process of testing the form anyway. So it just sort of folds right in there. The last of our level A topics is that we are not testing for 4.1.1 parsing anymore. Hooray, one less test to do. Screen readers, I was at first a bit skeptical of this.
I wasn't.
Like I don't particularly enjoy testing parsing, but I was like, oh, but I think as a developer, I'm like, dang, now I can't yell at people for their terrible code.
You and a whole lot of other devs. So I have had these conversations with a few people and they're like, but good code. I'm like, yes, but that belongs in developer advice. This is WCAG.
It is. Yeah, exactly. It's not presenting an accessibility problem.
Yep.
Screen readers, and I have found this just the other month. There were duplicate IDs on a page and it was in a form, and the screen reader, like it worked well with the keyboard, it did not work well with the screen reader. And it was really clear and easy to identify. You're like, oh, because it's got a duplicate ID, it can't tell which one it's going to. Done. That is a keyboard issue. If the browsers will try to fix incorrectly nested and closed tags, they will try really hard. If it's so bad that they can't do that, then you're going to have problems with info and relationships or name role value. It will happen. I'm fairly confident now. And these are the things that cause problems for users, right? So they're covered by other WCAG criteria. We can ditch this little, oh, you should validate your site kind of complaint that we always have to have. So that's level A sorted. Level AA.
The A's are pretty easy. Like, there's probably a little bit of, there'll be a little bit of, oh, is it or isn't it in there? But the real meat comes with the AA's, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd be surprised if we're finding a lot of issues like that. I think most places these days have considered these things from a usability point of view.
Exactly. Yeah. If you've got a good, well-designed site, I would say, yeah, both of those ones are pretty much a tick and flick.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just there sort of to almost like as a safety net. It's like, whoop, you missed a spot. Let's go back and fix that up.
So. Yeah, I must admit, thinking about consistent help, I think one of the things I've worked with organizations recently where like they've got a legacy system, so they're using multiple CMSs and that kind of thing as they migrate. I would say that might present some of those issues, but
that's where I would expect to see them. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So if you've got a site like that or products like that, maybe you need to pay a bit more attention to those ones. But fingers crossed, if you're nice and squeaky clean, it'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move on to our ones where we've got a bit more detail to dig into. Focus not obscured, which is 2.4.11. And this is a minimum. There is an enhanced in the AAA level. So we want to be testing this, or the general idea is that if someone tabs to an interactive element, the component itself, the thing that they have tabbed to, is not completely hidden by other content. We want to check for this in dev phase. During design phase, it's unlikely that you would be able to check for your keyboard. Like in theory, it shouldn't happen, but in practice, it happens all the time. I personally have been checking for this kind of thing while I'm doing my other keyboard tests and while I'm looking at the focus indicator tests. Just seems to be easy to kind of slot in at that point. And what we've been doing is tab to each UI control, as you would be doing anyway, to test, like, can you reach everything? Can you see some part of that control? If you can, good, pass. The other thing is, if some of it is visible or none of it is visible, but the user can get rid of that thing, that's a pass as well. If the user has control, basically, then we're like, oh, that's a pass. But if it's hidden behind something and there is just no way for you to get at it, that's a failure. Now, something that, oh, go on.
I was going to say, I guess a good example of that, something that can be dismissed, would be a notification panel.
Yes, like a toast, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Something where it might be like a sticky header, something like that. Or something you didn't realize had a Z index on it. And you're like, it shouldn't even be behind there at all. So this, when I'm testing for this, I frequently start thinking, oh, I can see a bit of focus indicator. I can see this, oh, that focus indicator is not very good. It's not actually about the focus indicator at all. Even though it's focus, not obscured, it's not focus indicator, not obscured. So anything to do with the focus indicator style, which while you're testing this and looking for obscured things, if there's a problem with the focus indicator, that's when you're going to notice it as well. And it's just a case of being aware that, okay, what type of problem gets caught? If it's a problem with the focus indicator itself, then we have other criteria from our previous versions of WCAG that handle that. So we're just purely on, can I see it? Yes or no. So it's a bit, I feel like it's easier with a visual. So I am going to open up a little demo. Here's one I prepared earlier. So I have some 3 buttons here. Let's pretend that this is a really full website with text and all sorts of exciting things in it. And we go, yep, lovely keyboard focusable buttons, very nice. I don't like those focus indicators. I think they're not going to work well with Windows High Contrast, but that's not what I'm testing. So here we go. We've got some content, and now we can see that button B is hidden by this content. Button C would not fail at this point, right? We can see some of it. So, okay, but button B is not failing either because we can close that. So button B doesn't fail because I can make it so that it gets revealed. The problem then, where's my keyboard focus? Here we are. No, hang on. There we go. This is because I made it all keyboard accessible. Here we go. What if we have no way to get rid of this? Button C still passes. Okay, I can see where that keyboard focus is. I can see that it's on button C. But when I move the focus back to button B, I cannot get at it. There is no way for me to dismiss this content. It is stuck there for no good reason, as far as I can tell. And so that is an accessibility problem, and we should tell people about it. So the slides and all of this will be available as well. So we'll give you that demo if you want to play with it. Next up is 2.5.7 dragging movements. This one did my head in because it's not what I want it to be. I want it to be something I can use to say, please don't make carousels, but it is not that. It is basically if you have anything which is a drag and drop or a drag a control somewhere, then you need to have a single pointer alternative. And as we know from our WCAG 2.1 criteria, a single pointer alternative generally, most of the time, 90% of the time, means a button. So we do need to test this during development phase. I would think in a place with a mature design kind of place, they would be aware of this and plan for it. But you really can't test it until you get to the dev phase. I've been testing this during keyboard tests, mostly because I do my keyboard tests before I do my touch tests. But it is to do with pointer controls. So we are talking about mouse and touch, not keyboard for keyboard or screen reader. However, because I'm testing, it's a dragging control, I'm testing if it has keyboard support anyway. So I might as well test, does it also have pointer support? So for each control, any UI control that needs a dragging movement, we need to check that a single point control is also available. And again, as I'm saying, this is about pointer control, not keyboard access. If there are dragging controls without single point alternatives, right? So you've got maybe a drag and drop, but there's no up and down buttons maybe to move things around. Is there another way to achieve the same goal? So for example, one of the, like if you've got a Kanban board with various columns, and usually people are dragging and dropping items from one column to the other. But if it's possible to go into the card and change its status, then it moves. You can achieve the same goal without having to do any dragging. You don't necessarily need a button to replicate that dragging movement. This is all very theoretical. It sounds very theoretical, doesn't it? But really, we just need enough single click actions that people with low dexterity can choose a final position for this item which can be moved. Right? It's a movable item. You can do it without having to do the fine dexterity work needed to drag things. And as always, our lovely standard WCAG exceptions. Is it essential to drag? Is dragging the whole point of the activity? Is the dragging motion not controlled by the user? If it's controlled by the side, yeah, cool, that's fine. That way you're not putting the user in a position where they have to do it. If dragging a control is literally the only way to achieve something, then we have failed this criteria. Another failure, which might not feel like a failure, is if you can operate the drag control with the keyboard, but not with single tap on a touch screen or single click with a mouse, because that would mean that we have keyboard support, but not pointer support. So this is much easier to think about with some examples. So a working example is YouTube's volume slider. You can drag this little slider here for the volume up and down, but you don't have to. Okay, that you have the option of, if you tap above the little thumb control on the slider, it increases. And if you tap below it, it decreases. Is it the fine precision that you might get with a mouse? Not really. Would that control pass our target size criteria? I haven't tested, but I am dubious. Maybe it depends on the size of your screen. But it does pass our dragging movements criteria. A failing example, and one that I've been annoyed about for many years, is Google Maps on desktop. You must use a mouse to drag. This is a Google Map screen grab of Perth. And if I want to move down to look at the Swan River, like what's along the edge of the Swan River there, I must use a mouse to drag. There is no way with a single point control to move that. You can sort of, like technically it passes with the keyboard, but it's really long roundabout kind of way. This is annoying to me because they have the single point zoom controls there. Down in the bottom right, you can zoom, like you can pinch zoom with a mouse, you can do all sorts of stuff, but they've got the little single tappy controls. I would suggest that they fix this by putting on each side of the map a button to say scroll up, scroll up a bit, scroll down a bit. scroll left a bit, scroll right a bit. I think that would be just lovely. But at the moment, Google Maps is failing this.
Julie, I might jump in. I've just been picking up some of the Q&As, and Emily's just asked, have we seen an example of a map that actually does this well?
I haven't. So if anyone else does, please do share, because then we would all love to tell all of our clients, like, please make it that way. Yeah, and partly because Google Maps provides so much functionality, so many people rely on it and put their own stuff overlaid over the top of Google Maps. So if Google Maps were to fix theirs, that would help us all out a lot. But if you know anyone who's come up with a way to add controls to this that work, and let us know. We'd love to do some usability testing on it. It would be amazing, I think. But yeah, maps generally kind of suck for people with dexterity issues generally, which is why you should always have an alternative. Multiple ways, people, multiple ways. My favorite criteria. Well, today. So our next criteria we want to dive into a little bit is 2.5.8 target size. This is again a minimum. The AAA level has an enhanced one. And what we want here is we want to make sure that our interactive elements meet our minimum target size or have enough space around them that you can kind of get a pointer in there.
This is always an interesting one. I know we're talking about, WCAG or that, but really the AAA requirement is one that is in line with all the general advice about target areas. In some ways, this criteria makes me feel a bit disappointed. To be honest, I think it's a bit of a cop-out to go, oh, well, we're doing the AAA one. So.
It's too hard to make people pass the AAA one. But yeah, if you look at the Google's material design and their Android recommendations, if you look at Apple's interface design, human interface design guidelines, all of them are recommending the AAA level of that amount.
44 by 44, CSS pixels or above.
Yeah, exactly. So this is kind of, I guess we'll have to think of this as like a halfway point to nudging everybody to that point. You can absolutely prevent this problem in the design phase by checking. If something manages to sneak through the design phase, as you'll see, we will be able to pick it up during a development phase. I usually do this during my keyboard and touch tests anyway, but I know that some of my colleagues are doing it more when they're checking through DevTools for name role value because they're in the DevTools anyway. I feel like this is one where you do this test at whatever point it fits in the nicest to how you're already testing. So what we need for this is, minimum target size. I'm just going back to check my notes on this slide, but what we said, minimum target size. What is a target size? A hit target is a more devy word for this than what WCAG is using. It's the area of a control which will accept a mouse or touch input action. So we are not talking about keyboard focusability here. Quite often, your focus area appears smaller than your hit target. And that's not a problem. As long as people with a pointer, mouse or touch, can hit the target, that's what counts for this. So in developer terms, we're talking the element itself, plus its padding, plus its border, and that equals your hit target. Margins do not count. That's your space around. But as we'll see with our space around criteria, they may contribute to that. So this UI control must not be in line. Okay, if we're talking about links inside a paragraph, for example, there's sort of the usual example for that. These don't count. Some links are just going to be very small and there's nothing we can do about that. It's not essential that this thing be tiny. Yep, that's it. As always. Yep, and be controlled or changed by the user. If the user is setting this, then okay, they will set it to wherever they feel comfortable, I hope. and they can make it at whatever size works for them.
Or if you are just, which is pretty rare these days, if you're just plonking a button on a web page and you are not changing it at all, then you don't
If
have
it's
to
the
worry about
browser
this criteria.
styles.
If the browser, the browser's doing all that work, it's setting the size, that kind of thing. Not that generally it means that it's going to be a great size, but it's basically, you divest responsibility. But in all honesty, I think anyone who's designing a good website today would always want to be customizing these elements.
Exactly. So true. So the way we're checking this, for each UI control within our scope, we're checking the size of its hit target. Now we can use a visual bookmarklet for this, or we can use DevTools in our browser. Now we've got an easy pass here. If it's big, if it's more than 24 by 24 CSS pixels, pass, move on, test the next object. Otherwise, we need to go through and check what happens with our undersized ones. Now,
and I know we haven't talked a lot about automated testing, or pretty much at all in this, because with WCAG 2.2 not being out yet, the tools are probably well in the background, but writing criteria. But I think for this one, particularly when it meets this minimum size, this will be a great candidate to include in an automated test. I don't think there should be, I know some of the tools on mobile apps already kind of check target size against more like that 44 by 44. So this one probably of all of them might be partially automated in the future.
I would hope so. I think it's possible to do it. It's just sort of a question. And I'm sure the people who make the testing, automated testing, are working on it feverishly right now. But there's always going to be some cases where the automated testing doesn't touch. So we need to know what we're doing. But hopefully it won't come up too often. I've just put the link for that cursor bookmarklet in the chat. So then any undersized targets that we have, we want to check, okay, fine, it's not 24 by 24 pixels, but within that 24 pixel area, there's no other hit targets, right? Like nothing else is coming into that spot. And we're measuring from the center of the control, not the top left or from the side or anything like that. This is, again, a bit fiddly to describe. So I have a little demo that I'm going to show you. There we are. Here's my previous one. So this is the circle cursor bookmarklet. You can take any of these links and just drag them up to your toolbar. And the way that those work is, this is my little demo page. You can grab your circle cursor and it changes to that. So that is the size. That's our WCAG relevant size there. And so we can see here, we've got our easy wins here. Look at that. That search button, way bigger than 24. Our input, way bigger. Our exceptions down here is our tiny link. It's a 3-letter link, that pi, to our Wikipedia page about pi. Okay, that's smaller, but you can't really make that bigger without doing weird things to the readability of the text. So that's an exception. Same again, these are the default browser radio buttons. They are too small. The only way to fix that would be to style it yourself. And in which case, if you do that, then you're taking on a whole pile of other responsibility, which you may or may not want. I'm all in favor of people making nice, big, fat radio inputs and checkboxes, but there is nothing technically wrong with the default browser ones. Now we get to the fiddly one, which is here. So see, here we've got a 4-letter one. The text is larger. So like you'll notice that, I'll just say that pi link, I had to make that text smaller in order to get it to not fix. And this is what I'm finding in practice when I'm testing, is if you've got a decent text size, baseline text size of 16 pics, you're probably fine. It's only if you've got these tiny little things that you end up with problems. So, oops, I've accidentally clicked and lost my little circle cursor. So here we have link. Now, I have to kind of hover over this. If you have dexterity problems yourself, you are going to have problems testing this. Someone with dexterity problems is maybe going to struggle to click that. And this is where we also find the drawback a little bit of our cursor method of testing, because the text link is like the visible part of the link. And because these have like quite poor hover states as well, we can't really tell what is the hit target. It might be bigger than the link. So instead, our fallback then, if using our nice, big, easy, obvious things aren't working, we can go to DevTools. And this also works better for people with dexterity issues or screen reader users who are trying to test this. You choose an element. I'm using the mouse here, but you can do it in the Elements panel. And so now I'm hovering over the link, and I can see it's got a navlink active. It's got in the little pop-up panel, it's got the size of the hit target. And you can see we've got blue and green. Blue is the size of the actual element. What is that green? It's our padding. So 44.41 by 40 is the size of our link here. Now, again, if you have problems with dexterity, that might be difficult to get that info, but that's okay. If you just hit it and click on it or navigate through the Elements panel, you can get the same info. And so we have navlink active here, and it's showing us just our size. If you are looking at this and you're getting an odd result and you're like, I am skeptical of whether or not that is actually part of the hit target, you can find out in Chrome. It is in the computed details panel for Elements. In Firefox, it's in layout. And you can see how it's working out the size of this object. So we can sort of roll over here. This unfortunately will not work for screen reader users or keyboard users. You can look at it and you can read it, but you can't do what I'm doing, which is highlighting just the specific parts. But you can see that padding is part of the hit target. And if I refresh the page and remove my fancy, I didn't want to actually check that. I wanted to, sorry everyone, live demo. What I wanted to do was show the change in the cursor. So here we go from, oh, it's a text cursor to a pointer to a hand. And you can see that that change between the pointer and the hand happens a distance away from that
actual
padding,
link. Isn't it?
That's the padding.
Yep.
And that is part of our link target. So for the purposes of this criteria, this passes. Now I've left till last the worst one. I had to work really hard to make something that didn't pass. So I have an icon only link. The icon is 16 by 16 pixels. And I said to the CSS, I'm like, no, put in this link, we don't want any padding, we don't want any margins, we don't want anything. And the browser then decided, well, that's terrible. And it still added a little bit of extra padding. So it's 16 by 21.5 for the link itself. This is not small enough. This is too small. This is not going to pass. But it's not going to pass on our first condition. This is undersized. This is an undersized link. Has it got enough space around it, right? So the actual click target of the link is teeny tiny. We don't get that distance away from it that we did with the other one. But if I bring back my circle cursor, we can see that if I center my cursor on the object, there are no other click targets in here. So technically, this is a pass. It's horrible. You shouldn't do it, but it is a pass. So you can, if you want to, if you wanted to fix this, you could give it a big border. Sure. And then our hit target becomes 36 by 41. You could also give it padding. You could ruin it by reducing the padding.
Julie's just adding a margin left of -15.
Sorry, yes. Yeah, adding a margin left of -15 to move it right over into the link that's right next to it. And now it fails. That's how much work we have to do to get to fail this criteria. So you can see why Sarah and I were a bit disappointed. We're like, really? But if someone is failing this, I am really glad that there is a criteria to tell them to stop it. So again, the URL for this demo, so if you want to play with it and test it all out for yourself, will be in the slides, and someone might find it and put it in the chat. I can find it and put it in the chat. Look at that. There we go. Beautiful. So there we go. Let me.
The best to last. Accessible authentication.
Accessible authentication. Sarah and I went round and round on this one. It should be. It's
definitely
so
the
hard.
most complex.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that the focus outlines moved to AAA, because that also was extremely complex. Yeah, but
that was a
we decided
one.
We only have so much time today, so we'll only cover the A's and AA's.
These are the ones that are most likely to come up. Accessible authentication. It should be people. It should minimum. Yes, there is an enhanced one.
Yep,
there's an enhanced one at AAA. So people should be able to authenticate themselves to a website using simple object recognition, or without needing to remember, transcribe, or manipulate any information. There should be no cognitive function tests. So you can, generally the way that logins work, you will have to test this during development phase.
But honestly, I think this is the one that's still going to be the most problematic for a lot of organizations who already have these types of authentication implemented, which means as testers, because there's the testing side and then there's the planning side. As testers, it's going to be a pain in the ass to test, which we found. But if you were doing this from scratch, it would absolutely be something that you would want to look at, and not even in design, it's in requirements. It's
in requirements. And you want to do get that process flow and work out what are the failure points of this. Sarah, you were saying earlier today, you can't just test the happy path where everything goes well. What about the fallbacks? What if someone can't remember their password? Then what? What if a bot check falsely identifies someone as a bot? Then what? So you need to account for all of these things. Common identifiers, such as name, email, phone number, are not considered cognitive function tests. I would also suggest that you can support the use of these and make them easier using our identify input purpose. Personal data using our autocomplete equals email, autocomplete equals phone number means that people can have even less cognitive burden to get these right. So you can definitely support this and make it as easy as you possibly can for people.
But it does mean if you are using things like email for something like your login, then technically that email that field, isn't considered something you have to remember because it's personal information.
Exactly.
The password field, though, which we'll talk about in a sec, of course, is a different matter.
Which is where all of the problems with this, well, not the problems with the criteria, the problems with login, the accessibility problems. So first of all, before you even dive into testing this, what type of authentication are we talking about? This will make a difference for you, okay? So if we are talking about a login form where it's a username or an email address and a password, is it possible to copy and paste? You should be able to copy and paste into this. If you can, awesome, lovely. If you can use a password manager, but I worry a bit, and this is maybe just me being very paranoid in my testing, I'm like, but not everyone has a password manager. I should check and make sure that it can copy and paste. To me, that's a more robust test because you're not relying on a third-party piece of software which may fail. Because then you might encounter a problem with the password manager and it's not the form's problem, it's the software's problem. That's just me.
It's more not blocking the password manager, which
exactly. Allow you to use it. Right.
That's right. And then if the problem is on the password manager side, like it's plug-in or that kind of thing, well, that's not within your control.
Yeah. And my understanding is that the password managers are using the platform's copy and paste functionality anyway. So I would expect
probably going to meet the other.
Yeah, exactly. I would expect if you pass one, you're going to pass the other, vice versa. If you cannot paste in anything your password, if you can't paste in a username or password, if you can't use a password manager, that's a fail. Okay, so that's our login forms. If it's any other type of password-free authentication, so we're talking about two-factor authentication, most of these are two-factor authentication, but biometrics comes in here as well. You shouldn't need to memorize or type any details. Magic links are listed as a pass of this. QR codes are listed as a pass of this. Biometrics, so fingerprint, face identification, voice identification, I guess. These are they are properties of a person, therefore they pass. If you are doing two-factor authentication and there is a one-time code and you cannot copy and paste it, that is a fail. That is called out as a specific failure of this criteria. If it's a one-time code and you can copy and paste it, then we're effectively back at the same situation as login. It's the same kind of thing. It's just that your password has been generated for you on the fly.
And I think the key for this is we can't assume people are getting that one-time password or one-time code on the same device. So,
yes.
You know, if you are sending the one-time passcode, say via email, then you've got those options of accessing the email on the platform you're on, which means you can copy and paste, which should theoretically mean this passes.
Yes.
But if it's sending it to SMS, you don't know if that person is on their phone already or actually on their desktop. And if they're on their desktop, they're going to have to transcribe that information, which is actually a failure of accessible authentication. Yeah. So that's where it gets tricky, I think, in this one, is that it's kind of multi-device as well.
Yeah, and this is where also you may end up with it passes accessible authentication, but it fails timing adjustable. Andrew Norman has done some really, gave a really good talk about his usability testing that he'd done with the two-factor authentication. So definitely ask him about that. It's full bottle on the topic. We get to, of course, the bit that everyone's worried about, bot checks. CAPTCHA style tests are a cognitive function test, which you would think would mean that they would be banned by this, but they have had an exception carved out for them at level AA. So identifying photos of objects is a pass because it's an exception. Identifying images that you personally uploaded previously, that is a pass because
very uncommon anyway.
Yeah, when they gave that example, I was like, okay, sure, if anyone wants to.
Where did you drag that one out of?
Yeah.
Kind of feels like a bit.
It must be somewhere. Failures, identifying distorted text or audio, because that requires a cognitive function. Now, yeah.
This is where.
Yeah, this is my summary of this is CAPTCHA version 2 is an automatic fail. CAPTCHA version 3 might be a fail, might be a pass, depending on what your fallback option is. If the system is like, you look like a bot, I'm going to give you a test. What test you choose matters hugely for accessibility.
And I think it's that example or that use of the word choice. So an audio CAPTCHA, really, out of all the options we have here, distorted text, audio, distorted audio, identifying photos of objects, and let's ignore the last one because I don't think I've ever seen one. If I am a person who's blind, really the only option I have here is an audio challenge. And an audio challenge fails. So I can't fall back on maybe one of those ones that passes, like identifying photos of objects. So in my mind, according to this criteria, that would be a fail, because as Julie mentioned in our long discussions preparing for this webinar, at least in our view, it's not just the happy path, it's all the different paths, and for a person who's blind, to me, they only have that one choice.
So I know that, and I've never seen it set up, but somewhere deep in the documentation of version 3 CAPTCHA is they say, oh, it falls back to version 2, or you can specify something else. And I am like, oh, if you can specify something else, could you then specify a magic link or two-factor authentication or a forgot password recovery style thing? I haven't seen that done. But if it is at all possible, I think you should take that option. It just seems much more human, I think, as well. It's like, oh, we thought you were a bot. Let's talk, right? If you're an actual human, you will take up that option. If you're a bot, you won't. I feel like this helps, but I haven't seen anyone do it yet.
Yeah. And yeah. I'll just answer Emily's question about for CAPTCHA, do photos of objects require alt text to pass? So reason why you won't find alt text on those is because then other nefarious AIs can come through and scrape that information, and essentially it makes the CAPTCHA redundant because they'll use that alt text which says, and I'm not saying the alt text will say this, but essentially, you know, this image has a fire hydrant, this image doesn't have a fire hydrant, this image has a fire hydrant, and they'll get around that. So it's been the not just in CAPTCHA, but even in some other organizations I've worked with, which actually use number pads to enter in like passwords and that kind of thing. That's always been an issue because essentially, yeah, it compromises the security of the system.
And so this is, as you can tell from the way Sarah and I are talking about this is a messy kind of thing to test. It's messy. You want to do a lot of preparation beforehand, right? If you know that you are going to have to test authentication, get as much information from the client as you can. Because people keep coming up with new ways, because no one really likes CAPTCHA. People keep trying alternatives and they don't block enough bots. So step 2, if your authentication method isn't any of the ones that we have discussed, you will have to assess for yourself, does it rely on memory or typing? If it does, then that is a failure. It's just really difficult. We are getting we're running out of time, and I would love to take questions from people. So we will wrap up. AAA, I'm just going to mention 2.4.12 focus not obscured enhanced means that in my little demo, button C would be a failure. Okay.
Because it wasn't completely visible.
Yep.
So this one,
yep,
the whole control has to be visible.
The whole control has to be visible.
Yep.
3.3.9 accessible authentication, no CAPTCHA. You just can't have it. It's just too hard. And I'm like, I hope people take that up. 2.4.13 focus appearance. You'll need to do a bit of math. But the math is not as scary as in the earlier drafts. So we'll see how we go with that one. Yeah, so thank you so much for this quick tour through how we've been handling this. Please do get in touch with us if you want to talk some more. And yeah, I think we are ready for some questions.
We are ready for questions. So we've got one which I think will actually be a pretty quick one, which was about 337. Is 337, the 337 criteria tested per session or from information previously gathered earlier, like days before?
Ooh, ooh, that's a good question. I would like it to be gathered earlier in a previous session. I would like it to be across sessions. Do we think it is though?
I think it depends what you define as a session. Remembering diving into this one, it was like they said, if you were filling out a form and you navigated away and like closed the browser and came back, that's not considered, you know, something that you want to save. I'm a bit iffy about like what constitutes a process. So I'm going to pose 2 scenarios here. The first scenario would be I've set up an account and I've pre-entered some of my information before, and then I do, like, let's take my e-commerce example. I'm, you know, buying some apples. I've set up an account before. I've got some of my personal details in there. I've logged in, and then I go and I need to enter my address, let's say. Now, does that constitute a process? Because the information I've entered in before as part of that registration process, is that part of the overall process, or is that a process is I register and then my process is I can log in and I can buy my apples?
Yeah.
That's a little bit tricky. I'm going to guess it really comes down to what you define as a process. And in my mind, they're probably two discrete processes, that register process and that need to then log in and, add something to cart and check out are two different ones. So I would personally say in a scenario like that, it doesn't constitute entering repeating information because they're two separate processes. If, however, I was logged in and I was doing a long process and I could save save where I'm at and come back to it 2 days later and finish that same process, I would consider that as valid, or it would need to meet the criteria, because it is still part of the same process. I've just gone away and come back. And to be honest, I might not have gone away and come back, which means I should actually, it would meet that criteria. So that's my take on that one.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be one of those that we kind of find the boundaries of this once we get more real world experience, like applying this criteria. We're going to have to really put it to the test and see what happens. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll pick up on the 2.2 one specifically. Are organizations already testing for 2.2? Some are, I think is the short answer. Certainly the ones that are a bit more progressive in accessibility have been tracking and thinking about this. And even if they're not testing, they're probably looking at things like design systems and what have you, and looking at what they need to do in order to make their things meet 2.2, or certainly anything new meet 2.2.
Yeah. And yeah, I've done a bunch of audits where we've said, look, 2.2 isn't carved in stone yet, and it's not legally required in some cases, but the client was interested in, let's just test and see what would happen if it became the legal requirement tomorrow. Where would we be? What would we have to do to fix things? And I think that's quite reasonable.
Might go up to the first question then, which was, could you help explain the potential costs associated with making a website fully accessible in line with the most current WCAG guidelines? Are there any specific factors that might increase these costs?
Accessible authentication.
If we just have a look at 2.2, I think, accessible authentication is going to be the most costly one too.
In terms of the time it takes, I think. And this is where I think the costs of making something accessible are much, much cheaper once you already know how to make something accessible.
And
you just build it the first time, and it's not particularly that much more expensive. It's when you try to fix a website which is already inaccessible and already built, and you have to go back and retrofit changes, you have to get permission to change this and that, and it's a much more difficult process because now everything's integrated to all of your other systems. Stuart usually has some numbers about costs, but I never remember what those are, but we can maybe share a link.
I think it's usually about 30 times by the time you get to the testing stage. So it's like 30 times more costly to fix something. And having been on projects where that happens, I
strongly recommend think about accessibility as early as you possibly can. It just reduces the cost significantly. So that's sort of moving into, like, if it's a smaller budget, absolutely think about accessibility from day one. That way you don't have to fix anything up, you make things right the first time. Cost-effective methods. Tools is the other thing.
I was going to say that cost effectiveness is, what are you building on, and do you know what you're building on or with is accessible to start with? So if it's smaller and you are using, I don't know, let's say WordPress as the example, find out how to use WordPress in an accessible way, or check it can be used in an accessible way. We know it can because our websites run off it. And then make sure you're using it in an accessible way and leveraging everything that comes with WordPress. So
use so many CMSs are really improving their accessibility. And they're building it right into the tool so that small business owners don't have to sit there thinking, oh no, now I have to learn about accessibility on top of everything else. It's like, no, I'm going to use the accessible option and trust that they're going to take care of it for me.
And there are still other things to consider, but that will give you, in terms of that cost effectiveness and getting you, you don't want to have to do things you don't have to do, essentially, or that other things will take care of for you.
Yeah. And I have 3 other things that you can do. One is test the contrast ratio of your brand colors before you decide on your brand. If that is at all possible, it can save you so much effort and time if you have contrasting brand colors. You can and should always run automated tests. I like Axe, Google Lighthouse. There's free versions of these. So run those automated tests. They're not going to pick up everything. That's okay. They're going to pick up the worst things. They will pick up things that are far easier for a computer to pick up than for a human. And they will tell you how to fix it. So that's amazing. And then do a 5-minute keyboard test. If you can do everything with a keyboard, then it's pretty likely that a screen reader user is going to be mostly okay as well. There's differences, it's not the same thing, but if it doesn't work with the keyboard, then screen reader users are definitely going to have a problem, along with all of your keyboard users. But if it works with a keyboard, you're actually supporting such a wide range of people. It really does help so many people. I don't think it needs to be, particularly if you're a small business, I don't think things need to be perfect. People understand the limitations, but if they can see that you're trying and you're doing your best, they're more likely to contact you and say, hey, I got a bit stuck. Can you give me a hand? Rather than go for that kind of nuclear option. I'm going to sue you because you're not accessible. It's like, you know what, just make an effort. Show that you're willing. And I think most, certainly in Australia at least, people are like, oh yeah, they're having a go. Like, good. So this is it. Like, as much as I am all about the purist and WCAG testing, at the end of the day, if your customers can use your website, you're doing good.
And I think at that note, we're just over time. I know there's a few questions we didn't get to from Carlo and Jacob, but I'm not sure that Zoom gives us your contact details. But if you want to drop your contact details in via our contact us form on the Utopia website, we can get back to you. Particularly, I guess, I can see Jacob's, is the UserWay plugin worth investigating? And I know Julie and I we could be here for 20 minutes on that. So you might want to follow us up on that one.
Well, I will say, Carlo asked about languages. Accessibility technically doesn't cover internationalization, but it can be really, really helpful if people doing internationalization work on their site pay attention to accessibility. That's the shortest answer I can give on that one. And how can I get my company to stop designing date pickers as they're not accessible? If I knew that answer, I would be so rich. But I would suggest Adam Silver has some really, and the gov.uk design system have some really great research on it, how to get dates out of people without using date pickers. So maybe give those a whirl and see if they are helpful to you.
Perfect. All right. And Jacob, yep, if you want to follow us up some way, we'll talk UserWay. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. As Julie mentioned earlier, we are going to be posting this up on YouTube, so you can watch out there, either watch it again or share it with your friends. Thank you all for attending, and to AI Media for providing the captions.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. See you later.
See ya.
Bye.